Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. You're going to be watching the Left of Greg podcast, episode number 25. We did it on Christopher Dorner. So if you don't know who he is or what he did, we'll get into that in the episode. We just want to remind you here, we're doing everything through the lens of human behavior, pattern recognition, and analysis, and the way we look at it. We're not just trying to Monday morning quarterback this. We want to take away the lessons learned. So speaking of lessons learned, you can go to our website. The links are down below in the comments. We posted all kinds of different lessons learned, so different stories like this and the important takeaways that we see in all of them. So you can check out more at the website. Please follow us on Facebook at HBPRA. We're updating stuff on there every day, all kinds of free information for you guys. If you do enjoy the video, please hit that like button, give it the thumbs up, share it, tell everyone about it. If you don't like it, it's YouTube, man. There's millions of other videos you can go watch. So enjoy it. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We enjoyed getting this content out there to you. And again, if you have any questions, go ahead, reach out to us, add it in the comments, or email us at leftofgreg@gmail.com. Thank you. All right, Greg. So it's just going to be me and you today, and we are going to be talking about the Christopher Dorner case. For those of you out there listening who don't remember Christopher Dorner, we're going to get into it, so pay attention. For those of you who do remember Christopher Dorner and what happened out here in Southern California, we're going to take it from our angle, our approach, and talk about some of the issues that arise from it, why this happened, why different events occurred from it, because there's a lot of spirals that this could go down. So
Marin, I think that's a really important thing that you just said. I think one of the things that the listeners and the viewers have to understand is what we're going to do is we're going to dissect pieces that we think are important based on science, and we're going to discuss it rationally from the legal, moral, and ethical standpoints of the science, opinion-based testimony of two subject matter experts, rather than conjecture and fluff and crap. So you're going to get the down and dirty from us, and feel free to call us on it. We're ready.
Yeah. So I'll just give a real quick background on the case for those of you who don't remember, but it was a former probationary officer with the Los Angeles Police Department, was fired for different reasons. And then in the beginning, about February of 2013, he committed a series of shootings in Orange County, LA County, Riverside County, targeting, there was police, civilians, including like some of the police officers' families. He killed 4 people. He wounded 3 others, just him personally. And then it kind of ended on February 12th up in Big Bear, California, San Bernardino mountain areas, when he died in a standoff with San Bernardino County sheriffs. There was feds. There was a huge task force out looking for him, and he ended up dying during that standoff. So that's the basics of the case. Dorner was also a Naval Reserve officer. It's just important to note that as well for some of the movement that he does. But that's the basics of the case that we're going to dive into. So, Greg, do you want me to start with the beginning timeline, and then we'll take it from there?
If you'll indulge me, Brian, if I can do something, I'm just taking notes here.
Yeah.
It just came across my wire. I want to give a shout out to the friends and family of Tuscaloosa, Alabama police officer Dornell Cassette, who died just a little bit ago now in a shooting. I apologize to start with such ominous news, but as we're going to be talking about more cops that are shot, it's important. And Brian, what I had made a mental note for as we were starting, you know me, I'm one for learning, grasping that opportunity for a little bit of learning here. And what I'd like to do is assign homework to the listeners or the people that are watching us, and have them look up a couple of companion cases with which they can compare our notes to their notes. First being Kip Kinkle. I think if they go back to Thurston High School, Kip Kinkle in 1998 up in Oregon, killed his mom and dad, and then went in to do a school shooting. Only got 2 students before the students overwhelmed him. And then fast forward to 2014, Elliot Rodger up in Isla Vista, California, killed 6, injured at least 14, if I'm remembering correct, outside of, what was that, UC Santa, oh my gosh, it'll come to me in a second.
Sure.
But
I can't remember.
Idea is Isla Vista's Santa Barbara, outside of Santa Barbara. And apologize for that memory lapse. Here's why I'm assigning those folks. If you're taking a look at the Dorner case, you have to cleanse your palate in between sips. And the way to do that is take a look at Kip Kinkle, who had nothing to do with the Dorner case and nothing to do with the psychopathy that Dorner felt that caused his downward spiral. Kip Kinkle was a mixed-up kid, was doing bad in school, brought a gun to school, thought it was a cool thing. It turned out to bite him in the butt. He got suspended from school. Now he didn't know what was going on. Military school, the next thing, and all the pressure turned him into wanting to kill a bunch of people, then kill himself. Elliot Rodger, however, is almost identical to Dorner, much like Klebold and Harris and Columbine. And Elliot Rodgers will give you a look at inside a person's psychopathy that's virtually identical to Dorner. And so now you have one that's nothing like it and one that's very much like it. And Brian, the reason I'm saying that is because then at home they can do the comparison and go, oh, this is how I can now look at my coworker or look at my friend or look at that guy at the library and determine that they may be a threat. Does that make sense?
And yes, absolutely. And we'll weave those themes throughout this, how these all relate to each other from human behavior pattern recognition and analysis, right?
Exactly. That's the lens. So we're gonna that's
the lens. And just as for some of the newer folks who haven't heard any of the podcasts before, we don't get into motive too much, right? We'll talk more about that when it comes up, but meaning someone's motive or motivation to commit a crime is not important. Their intent is important, right? Because motive, I don't care, meaning Dorner did this for this reason, but his behavior is the exact same way someone would be doing it if they were claiming allegiance to ISIS and wanted to kill law enforcement.
Exactly. So motivation is so right of bang, and it's so gosh darn. You know what, Brian? If we can tell the listeners, motivation is what gets people to sleep at night. You got to say, oh, that Jeffrey Dahmer, he ate those people. He was different than me.
Yeah.
See, because if you think that Jeffrey Dahmer lived next to you for 14 years in your
you don't want to believe that. It's scary.
Exactly.
Right.
So we don't want to be frightened. So we've got to come in. Other than the subsequent prosecution of somebody, it's a waste of time.
But again, and the prosecutors do that. Why? To attempt to explain to a jury of average Americans of why someone would do something like this, because we're curious. We want to know. Wait, why would someone?
But it's more than that, Brian.
It's fear.
I think it's more than fear. It's their fear too. You're exactly spot on. So that guy sitting in a jury goes, well, my kid would never do that. Just like that husband says, my wife would never do that. And 4 kids end up in a car in a bayou. You get what I'm trying to say? Because of postpartum depression. It's all scientific. Nothing is happenstance, but we are afraid to say that could be me. We're petrified.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'll kind of start with the timeline. So little known, or I don't know how well it's known, but so this is all let's go to February 2013 when this is occurring, right? So actually on February 1st, CNN received a package from Dorner that he had sent something kind of implicating the Los Angeles Police Department and a challenge coin with a bullet hole in it. That wasn't actually brought to anyone's attention till like the 7th of February after all this occurred. But just so everyone understands the timeline of when Dorner sent that, right? So he sent kind of his intent on what he was doing the very end of January or right there in the beginning of February. So then 2 days later, February 3rd, Dorner shoots Monica Kwan and her fiance Keith Lawrence outside their condo in Irvine, California. So that's in Orange County, California, just north of Camp Pendleton. And Monica Kwan, is the daughter of Randall Kwan, who was former LAPD captain, and he was the lawyer who represented Dorner during his 2008 dismissal from the LAPD.
So can we start at this chunk, Brian?
Let's do it.
And I'm going to give you a psychotic episode because I'm going to fast forward, back. Yeah. Something you ain't seen in the last 10, 15 years, right?
You're going to be Greg.
I'm going to be me.
You're going to be Greg.
So here's the thing. I'll ask every one of our viewers to, I have no idea what sites are out there that show photos, but I know that there's photos out there of Chris Dorner. And first of all, no gallows humor. The reason I was smiling earlier is this stuff is so simple. You got to detach emotionally from it and take a look objectively at this. I am sorry for everybody that was a victim in this. I'm certainly sorry for Chris Dorner and his family and that he felt this was the only way out. Yeah. This is what you got here.
This is a broken human. And
yes, this is a broken human, and we're talking human performance.
Yeah.
So here's a triangle. That's really cool. If I was on some kind of drugs, that would make a triangle. On the 3 sides of the triangle, what you have and what Kip Kinkle didn't have. Here's a great example for Isla Vista and Elliot Rodger in talking about Dorner. On the bottom of that hypothetical triangle, put Machiavelli. On the side, put Narcissus, and on the other side, put psychopathy. So it makes this triangle. And if we were going to talk about the perfect storm of damaged human, that triangle is the lens, the acetate that we should look through. Remember the Deedle doors and what was the one where the lady looked through her little magic mirror and said, "Hey, I see Tommy, I see Billy." Well, if we did that with this caper, that
no one understands those references.
Yeah, they'll look it up later. I'm old, okay? They know what a romper room. That was it. She was looking through the mirror in romper room. Look it up. But the idea is that if you look back to that Anderson Cooper and the manifesto and all that, one, he wasn't a cop. He wanted to be a cop. You get what I'm trying to say? And let me balance this, okay? He was a lieutenant. He was in the Navy. Look at all the photos that he posted. Look at the photos of him. Every photo of Dorner is a glamour shot of Dorner.
Yes.
When he sent that rifle, or the challenge coin, what he was trying to show is, hey, look, that's narcissism. Okay, so a classic narcissistic objectification. It was so strong in him that if you take a look at all his photos, he was more interested in how he looked. As a matter of fact, in this ridiculous manifesto, which everybody should have saw, was eye-opening. It's not unlike Kaczynski. He was trying to say, you mere mortals don't understand. My word is my bond. It's so important. Brian, you said it the best when we were talking just a few minutes before tuning in. Doesn't matter what they did to him, what he did in response isn't right. So when we go back and take a look, he uses terms, and I'm going to piss a bunch of people off right now. We were in Bahrain. You and I spent a lot of time in Bahrain.
And
Bahrain's beautiful.
Careful,
okay,
careful. As your legal representative, I get it. Let's be careful what we discuss.
I get it, but listen to me. Listen to me, folks that are listening. Bahrain, yes, you are deployed to Bahrain. Yes, you have an opportunity to be shot and killed there. You have just the same opportunity in Cancun or Windsor, Canada. So here's my thing. The rapid deployment crews and all the special units we trained, including Dorner's team.
That's their off time, is in Bahrain.
You get what I'm trying to say? So when you talk about Bahrain, that's
time
Bahrain,
to go drink and lift weights.
Capital Y for the yawn. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you got to be secure. But the word deployed pissed me off just by hearing that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's like saying, hey, where'd you spend I was in Kuwait. And that's a war zone. Yeah, it's a war zone. It was a war zone.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying? 90s.
When you got there, it was a Holiday Inn Express. But the idea is that don't give me any crap. He wanted to make that look like a badge of honor. Everything he did was about his own machismo. So if we take a look at the psychopathy means that I'm okay, you guys are all screwed up, and I have no impulse control when it comes to dealing with humans that challenge my view of my ecosystem, okay? And so that brings us right to Machiavelli. I need to control my environment. I need to control my message. I need to control how you see me. I need to control how you act around me, how I'm remembered. Cho, do you get what I'm trying to say? So if we go back to Dorner, just the fact that the news media misinterprets some of the information initially makes it hard to understand Chris Dorner. Chris Dorner went to the police academy, wore his white gloves, smiling on a photo, just like in his Navy photo. Take a look at it, folks. Take a look at him sitting on the Hummer, holding his
rifle.
M4 when that rifle
just staged photo.
It just came, and a stage photo that came right out of the armory, and that weapon went right back in. There was no live ammo there. There was a sock in the magazine well to keep the dust out while they were filming. Now, I'm not saying that you're a poser.
It's not wrong. Yeah, everyone wants to do that, but
we all want to do that. That's part of our ecosystem.
Yeah.
The difference is in his hate, fear, and death triangle that I just tried to explain very briefly, Psychology 405 that I just gave you in just a minute. In his, it was so crucial that he sweated for 2 years before it became so much that he had to do something about it. Just like Elliot Rodger saying, okay, all you women that turned me down, everybody that had that chance, now you're going to pay.
Which is the same thing as look at his manifesto, and you look at Cho's manifesto at Virginia Tech. It's, I gave you had 100 chances. This is your fault, not mine.
So Brian, no offense, and I'm not laughing. I'm just laughing at the ludicrousness. if you've ever written a manifesto, ever, do you see what I'm saying? Where it demands certain concessions, you might be the guy with the problem.
You might.
The VA hospital is not far. Walk or run or call somebody. Do you get what I'm saying?
Right.
So the idea of this guy, here's the thing. He's pissed off with his station in life. That self-image is so strong that he's saying, hey, listen, I need to act out. So one of the misinformation, the Kwans, the poor female and the male that died in the car, they made a big point out of her boyfriend was in security, and that fit his manifesto.
He did stuff at USC, but it was,
I got it.
Yeah,
round peg, square hole, Brian.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what we're doing is we're trying to make facts fit the discussion that don't necessarily fit.
He wasn't the target anyway.
Yes. And so Quan, if you read deep enough into it, and look, I'm a street guy, so I don't always use the right words, and I'm sorry my writing isn't up to your standard, you Rhodes Scholar bastards. But the idea is, I want you to take a look real quick back at the reports that came out. They said that he was fired from the police field training officer program before he ever was sworn copper in L.A. Because he was a whistleblower and reported a use of force incident. Now, in those articles, it actually shows Captain Quan as saying, listen, he was unjustly fired. The evidence showed it all. We didn't see in those articles when this incident happened that Quan was his defense attorney. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So this former copper is coming to the ground and going, oh, yeah, everything was wrong. Well, how was it then that they did 18 months of an investigation and interviewed everybody, and there was not one fact? Show me a fact that he did anything.
That's the thing to remind everyone. He went through an appeals process.
After the investigation.
Events were investigated several times, and each time they found, hey, there's nothing here, and they found that he was lying. Now, and just to bring the point up, let's assume everything he said is true. And
absolutely.
Let's say everything he did, he said, hey, you know what? No, this really happened. He watched his field training officer use excessive force, that the LAPD conspired to get him out. Let's assume all that to be true. Well, in no way does that justify his actions. You don't get to go kill everyone. There's a process. If that really happened,
because now my name is going to be cleared.
You don't clear your name by killing people.
Where's the quantum leap logic?
I don't.
We knew a couple of people like that, didn't we?
Yeah. Well,
you know what I'm saying?
If that's you listening right now, let's get thee to some help.
Get thee to the VA hospital.
But that's the thing. There's a number of things you guys can go read about this. We don't need to bring up all the details, but his FTO said plenty of stuff about him from the first day she met him. He never filed a complaint against him until he had adverse reaction. Then he said, oh, as a matter of fact, I saw this. And you're like, well, wait a minute. You didn't say anything when it happened. But now,
what did he say on his first day? His first day on the job with his FTO.
First day,
allegedly.
He said, so his FTO said the first thing is, I plan on suing the LAPD once I'm done with my probationary period. That's a bold statement. Just say to your field training officer.
It's an insane place to start. It's a broken human, and the broken human, because of his psychopathy, has a hard time communicating with others. See, we have this idea that it's the bald guy petting the cat and saying, Mr. Bond, and the further you out that you're insane, you're clinically insane, but you're a devious genius.
No,
that's not it at all.
That's not true.
You have no idea how to deal with other humans in a social setting. So it was showing. Those little cracks and seams were showing right there. And if you take a look back and remember, you gotta, to be a human behavior profiler, you gotta do your research. You gotta get back there and do your homework. That's why I push it to you all the time. There was a thing in one of the articles a long time ago that said, while he was in the Navy, as a lieutenant, mind you, not an admiral. Do you get what I'm trying to say? He wasn't a ship's captain. And all I'm saying that for is that everybody that spent 4 years in the military that came out is now some kind of hero. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Right. Stolen valor set aside. But even if you'd served your country when you came out, you're not the best at what you do. You're just another guy just like me. And the gosh damn lieutenant thing, it added in an article that not only was he a lieutenant, but he was a marksman. Everybody's a marksman. If you didn't shoot the guy next to you on the range, you made your marksman. And finally, it says he and some other Navy guy found 12 grand,
$8 grand, or eight, whatever the amount.
You know how I don't care. And he turned it in. Okay, so Jeffrey Dahmer didn't eat everybody he met. So he's not that bad a guy. Look at Elliot Rodger. You remember Elliot Rodger's manifesto sitting in the car
Yeah.
You puny humans, I'm going to kill you. And these are his words, not mine. Look next to him on the console. I watch for little things. He's got a Starbucks or a Dunkin'. You can't tell what it is, but you can see the sleeve in the cup, and he's drinking from it. Okay, what should scare you shitless, and pardon my language, is that he was in line getting that
next
coffee
to you,
when you were in line getting your
Yeah.
caramel macchiato and you didn't see him. That's
the-
what this broadcast is about,
That's
Brian.
that's exactly it. I think you hit it on the head with that.
I think that's what this is. So
we bring in details and facts or that don't matter, that don't speak to the situation, and just seek to kind of confuse us more in that attempt to understand, because we're scared of these things, right?
Yes.
I don't understand it, so I fear it, right? If I don't understand something, I'm going to fear it.
Can I give you a perfect example of that?
That's an evolutionary biological trait, because
it's chemical, it's physiological, it's mental. You're exactly right.
It's because the people that said, "Oh, these folks look nice," a lot of them died when they showed up. So, so when you
answered the door,
and so we fear those things. So,
hold on, let me spiral this for just a second for those listeners that don't have a science background. Okay, so I was in the middle of nowhere checking out a Connex to prepare for one of our scenarios at some range in the middle of the desert, 100 miles from the closest town. But it was a military base, and this was the remotest part of the base. And I was completely alone, worrying about Gila monsters and stuff. And as I went into a Connex, I saw a pair of legs and a pair of shoes and a pair of feet. I had just come from a briefing, and at that briefing, they told us indigent people are living in the Connexes out there, and sometimes they find dead people and skeletons. So the first thing, it looked convincing, so I threw a couple of expended 50 cal rounds and said, hey, buddy, I don't want to surprise somebody and get, shivved like a prison shower. And so I moved a little closer, and you could see clearly that it was a human, partially covered by sand, so now I'm thinking it's a decedent, a dead person. So I kicked the foot a couple of times, the shoe comes off, it's a mannequin. My brain didn't care. Nope. I went through all those preliminary steps because my brain's chemistry said what killed him might still be waiting in there, and that T-Rex might bite you in the throat. So all of those processes that you just described so eloquently, Brian, we all have. And what we have to do is tune back into them to prepare us for going into these environments where danger may lurk. And Dorner came unglued, and he had 2 years to do it, and nobody called him on it. That's what we want to prevent with these broadcasts.
So we'll continue on with the timeline here, and we'll introduce one other term that we like to use. Is when we say the glass is full, right? Someone gets to that tipping point, or something happens in their life, and the glass becomes full, and that's when they lash out. And we see that in a number of different situations. The guy who just down in Texas recently just got fired from work, and he started shooting, getting in his car. And
he was full.
The glass, when we get that, the glass is full. There's a million other things going on in that person's life, and then whatever this trigger was to just go, the glass is full. So if
wouldn't you agree that trigger is more important than motive?
Absolutely.
Because it's different. Okay.
Absolutely.
So he had a trigger moment that we have to identify. Then his intent was clear. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And afterwards, we can look back and go, oh, well, he'd always hated people. Well, shame on you if we knew that about him and nobody said something.
Right. All right. So we'll continue with Dorner here. So that was February 3rd when he killed Monica Kwan and Keith Lawrence. February 4th, he posts his manifesto. Important to understand what that is. He actually listed, it said, I got
targets,
various reports, but he listed at least 40 actual law enforcement personnel by name as targets, which were also included was Randall Kwan and his family. So then police went, okay, he likely killed Monica and Keith. Go ahead.
So you're the most studious guy I've ever met. You're detail-oriented. Yeah, I know, because I hang around with a bunch of flubs. But the idea is you're detail-oriented to everything. You're taking notes. I'm taking notes. We want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward in everything. When was the last time you wrote down 40 names of people?
Exactly. Never. I don't
ever?
Since, I don't think I've ever wrote.
I write more than anybody I know.
I don't have.
Read it,
I don't know 40 people. I certainly don't have 40 friends.
But even if you even if you got a wild hair, and you have many, and you decided to go on this day and write down everybody you met ever in your entire life, which would still be short of 40. But
it would be.
Have you ever done that? So think right there of what was going on in his mind when he sat down and first said, I'm going to write a manifesto, which is amazing to me. And the second thing is, I'm going to go out and I'm going to shoot this coin. I'm going to send that to a guy at CNN. I'm going to write this. I'm going to list these people, all of these people. That's right back to that triangle. We're talking about a psychopathy, and it's clear, and there's time now to do what the coppers did and try to rein him in. So the coppers put out a warrant for him and probably an APB, all points bulletin for him, right? But people at home think a bolo, people at home think a bolo means that you're going to change what you do and you're going to start going out looking for this guy. Now, while they assigned security teams, we both know that they did, the coppers did, to some of those families, and while they put out the bolo and the photo and everything else, do you think, and this is just me speculative here, I have no idea what's going on with this head thing, but it's leaning that way. So can I talk like this for a few minutes? The idea is, let me ask you this question, Brian. Do you think that any one of those folks at that time, not knowing that the Quans had been killed, some of the people are just reading this manifesto, Anderson Cooper looking at the coin, do you think anybody thought at that point, oh my gosh, we got a serial killer? Oh my gosh, we've got this wild, ramped up person that's doing it. I can prove to you that nobody believed that, and we both know that's denial. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Right.
Because people were still trying to placate society by saying, look, we're going to look into these allegations of wrongdoing.
And that's a good point to bring up right there. What the LAPD was doing and other law enforcement agencies were doing was doing that, giving press conferences. Come on, Chris. Hey, that's enough. Enough people we don't need to hurt anyone else.
That part's good. At what point, psychological and good. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to bash them, but go ahead.
But I'm saying, and same thing. All right, folks. Hey, we got to. It's just that once he's made the decision to do it, it's not going to stop. It's not.
And it's an unrealistic standard, and we're only doing that so we can sleep tonight, saying we made that announcement. You're exactly
and that's
right.
the only reason why those announcements come out. They did nothing. He's not.
If it was in a kidnapping and we were trying to save the life of a hostage, it would be a completely different scenario.
He's not going to hear that on the radio and go, "Hey, you know what? You're right.
Damn, you're right.
That's enough."
Yeah.
And just pull over and put his hands.
What was I thinking? Right? When I was typing the manifesto,
I should have thought of that. Yeah.
Come on, stop for a minute. And we're not making light of this, folks. We're just frustrated that every news article that we see and every exposition about this and everybody that talks about this focuses on the ridiculous instead of looking at the big picture. This was a broken human that needed to be stopped. And at that moment, there was no amount of energy that was going to go towards stopping him. It was all a waste of calories at that point. You had to find him. And he was not going to go easy.
And we'll talk about this, but that goes into then how does law enforcement think about yourself as a law enforcement officer approaching the situation? What artifacts and evidence do I have to say that he's going to likely give up? Anything?
Yes. And if you do, then exploit it, because at this point you have none.
You have none. Everything
this is my only way. He even says in the manifesto, and I hate even saying that word now because it's lost all meaning, but he says in the manifesto, I'm not going to live to see my name cleared. So he intended, as he wrote that days before he delivered it, that he was going to die during the episode.
Right there, he is going. He is in it to win it, man. He is going to fight to the death. So that changes your approach. That changes your resources you use.
But it didn't in this instant.
Nope.
It didn't in this instant, Brian. When he shot Quan and her boyfriend, he shot him from behind in the car while they were seated. Okay. Did he go up and face him and say, "Hey, listen, I'm dueling you"? Do you get what I'm trying to say? We are about to fight here because you wronged me. No, it was an ambush killing. Your next coppers that are going to die.
Yeah, so let's just jump.
About to talk about. Let's talk about that.
Let's go right into it. So obviously February 4th, the word gets out is of all those names, these people it's going after. The 5th, he was down in San Diego. He checked into Naval Base Point Loma to stay there, and then skipped some checkout procedures. But there is record.
But what does that tell us about him?
Yes.
Okay, what does that tell us about him? He was so focused on his thing, he wasn't following your rules anymore. But I have my rules.
This goes into doing the predictive analysis of their behavior. Where is he going to go when people are on the run? When you need to go somewhere, if you're going to go, you want to take out your revenge on someone, you need to look for familiarity. So he's going to
go home
places. He's going to go home. He's going to go to a place
that was his home.
So he went there on the 5th, and then I know on the 6th, I don't think it was reported till later, but on the 6th was when he was spotted because he tried to steal, some 47-foot boat from a guy in Point Loma, and then the boat owner said he was tied up, and the guy threatened him with a gun, and he wanted the boat to flee to Mexico. So I know that was reported on the 6th. But let's go right to the 7th.
Well, in one word, and I hate to keep doing this to you, Brian, you said earlier, let's assume that everything you said was right. So I'll throw this in for the investigators that are listening out there. Yeah. You have to, at that point, say one of two things. One, is this broken human clearly trying to flee to Mexico and just wasn't able to steal this boat? That seems unlikely.
Seems unlikely.
He completed everything else that he wanted to do,
Yes.
didn't he? Okay. So what if he came out thinking, hey, listen, I've already killed. I have to throw them off the scent.
Yes.
We're in San Diego. Let's make it appear. He bought snorkeling equipment. Well, he's going to swim to Mexico? Do you get what I'm trying to say? So the idea is, what if that was a ploy, Brian? What if he was so thinking about his next move that he wanted to give a red herring? He wanted law enforcement to start watching the border.
And that's a possibility, because he behaved differently with those people if he really had the organization to.
Why did he leave witnesses, Brian?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good point. We could deep dive that forever, but yeah, let's continue on. So that was he basically leaves the San Diego area, heads back up northeast, so east of LA, to Corona, California. So this is kind of important timeline. When I put these times out and I say like 01 or 03, and it was like 0115 or 0320, I don't care. It's the purpose is the takeaway.
Exactly.
So those of you listening who are like,
a map overlay.
It wasn't.
A map overlay, and kind of this happened before or after the next thing. Yeah. Just like studying history in school. You don't need to know 1662. You need to know what happened on that day. Yeah,
exactly.
Great, Brian. Great point.
So on February 7th, so remember, at this point, bring up, it was about 01, so it was right after midnight. It's middle of the night. So you got 2 LAPD officers. They were, I guess, en route to go to one of the protective details.
A security detail, yeah.
Security detail to protect one of these officers that was named in his manifesto, that they're calling it. And someone said, hey, I spotted this guy. I think I saw him at a gas station. And so they went to investigate. They started following a pickup truck. And Dorner gets out, fires a rifle at him, and at that one, it just grazed the head of one of the officers.
That's called bad guy luck.
Yeah.
Bad guys, they pull up the gun just to fire a couple of noisemakers in your direction and kill 3 cops. It always happens. But let me throw one at you right here. We're doing Marines. We're doing training back in the Combat Honor days. And we had a couple from 3rd Marine up in Hawaii. A couple of Marines came up and said, oh, I don't believe that you can do your Jedi mind trick on me. And I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you in this ville. It's going to feel like any ville in the world. You're going to come around the corner, and I'm going to have something that's Christmas in July, so good to be true, that you're going to run at it, even though you know you shouldn't run at it. And the guy said, no, you're never going to show it, Brian. You were there. Right. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So Shelly, and she's a role player manager on this caper. She sets it up. So we had a guy with a 45 tucked in his waistband. You remember that? And the guy's talking to the other group. So here comes the Marines on their patrol. They come around the corner. The guy with the 45 looks at him, drops the gun, and turns off running. What did the point man do?
They chased right after him.
And they turned the corner, and we ambushed the snot out of them.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. These cops are sitting in a car. They're ready to go to a detail. They've got their body bunkers in the back. They got their gats. Everything is loaded. They got their armor piercing. Boss gave them, hey, clear. This is our
whatever
ROE.
you want. Yeah.
Happen.
Yeah.
And they finally get the call that in their mind they're dreading, but in their mind they're also going, God, I hope I am the guy.
I hope I get it. Yeah.
And what do? We don't give ourselves the gift of time and distance. We race to the scene where Dorner, 3-1 odds defense, that you got the advantage, 5-1 in urban. Dorner goes, here comes the next 2 cops. And he pulls out and he fires well-aimed rounds, high volume of well-aimed fire, trumps the decision. Those cops are now on what mode, Brian? They're at bang.
They're at
bang.
So
therefore, it's rolling the dice, and they have to react. So here's my thing from a former copper and from training all over the world. Those 2 coppers, God bless them for doing their job every single day out there. But I would, not being on the scene, I would question their knowledge of advanced critical thinking, specifically when it comes to the gift of time and distance. What do you? And I'm interested. Am I way off here? Do you feel the same way?
It is, and it affects even the most highly trained, highly experienced people. If you don't have
these guys are heroes.
Yeah, exactly. Is that and that's our whole point when we bring this stuff up too. It's that most of these things, 99.99% of your situations you get in law enforcement career are not worth losing your life over.
Yes.
That one by chance situation where a guy's walking down the street just killing, women and kids left and right, that's worth your life maybe to run in there and
slow time down.
But you got to slow time down.
Saturate the field.
Yeah.
Limit their amount of motion and their escape routes.
Right.
Get that stop stick ready. There's a whole bunch of things. But listen, you can't fault the cops because their chemistry told them,
yes,
we have Dorner, that's him, let's go. Or one of the cops might have said, hey, this can't be Dorner. What are the chances?
Right.
Let's stop him. Which is most dangerous. I say both. I say they're on an equal
they're
playing
on an
field.
equal plane. That it's probably not him, but let's go check it out.
So denial can kill you
yes, just
in
as much
in a
as
boring environment or in a titillating environment. So
yeah.
just as much as an excess of caution can kill you.
All right. So then about 20 minutes after that happened,
This is an important timeline.
yeah.
Right
So
here,
about
because
right
now,
after, because it was right about
yep,
1:30 in the morning. It wasn't more than about 20 minutes after he shot at the officers in Corona.
yep.
He was in Riverside, and he walked up and ambushed a police car who was stopped at a traffic light. One of the officers died almost immediately or right after the shooting, and one was rushed to a hospital. He survived, but was in critical condition at the time.
God bless him for their service.
Yeah. So he literally 20 minutes after that shooting of, hey, we got a possible sighting of Dorner. Then they get shot at. Okay, looks like it was Dorner. 20 minutes later, two police officers at a stoplight were ambushed and killed by him.
So let's split things up. Let's go to Dorner for just a second. Dorner now, deep in his Machiavellian, psychopathic, narcissistic rage, the triangle again, don't forget that triangle, is now on what we scientists call, and I'm self-taught social scientist, so bite me if you can't take that, but he is what we're doing called the happy head. Dorner now knows the cops are after him. They're right behind me. So every time he sees a car turn, every time he sees bright headlights, in his mind, who is it, Brian?
Oh, it's
the
police.
cops.
It's cops.
So now he's at this elevated level. So when he sees the next two cops, he tells himself, hey, here's two more guys that are looking for me. Now, flip that coin right quick. Do you think for an instant, even with those radios calls coming over, those cops were in the turn lane. They were going to make a turn. What was the driver thinking about? Is traffic clear? What was the passenger thinking about? That burrito from El Charro's had the best mole sauce that I've ever had in my life. Do you think that coppers are superhuman? If you do, stop it for a minute. They're just like us. They got to go potty. They need another cup of coffee. They got two jobs because the kid's in a private school.
Yeah.
Do you think coppers are doing counter surveillance? If they've been through our course, they have. But an average person, training changes behaviors. An average person doesn't go around saying, I wonder why this guy's walking up to a police car. And what have we established? That in police terminology is called a window drop. You pull up or you walk up to a police car to talk to him. So who's at the disadvantage? Dorner knows what's next.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say? And again, he's got 3-1 or 5-1 odds against those coppers. Police officers out there, get D2 training. You're great at what you do. Thanks for your sacrifice. Thanks for what you're doing. When they say there's no training budget, find a new agency or go to the training officer, go to your mayor and say this gift of time and distance. And in addition to the gift of time and distance, the advanced critical thinking will save lives. They could have boxed Dorner in. They could have done a bunch of stuff. Not going to play armchair quarterbacks, but cops don't need to die because we neglect training.
Right. And so that happens, middle of the night, about 1:30 in the morning. And then he takes off from there. So this night, although it is over in terms of what Dorner does, because of the situation that he's created, there's another shooting, not involving Dorner. But because of him. So at about 5:30 in the morning or slightly before, right around 5, I believe it was still dark. It's February, so it's still dark out at that time. Yeah. You had a couple Los Angeles police detectives came or observed a vehicle similar to Dorner, right? Of what very similar make and model of what he was driving, right? So I believe they were sitting at a, they were on a protective detail. I think at the time, I don't want to
exactly what it was.
They're in a protective detail outside of an officer's house, and they see a vehicle coming up similar to Dorner's.
It was one of the people that was named on the hit list. They're in a position to observe that street and the exit from the highway. Here's the thing. Go to the lessons learned that I wrote about and take a look at the pictures of the cars. I don't think they're even remotely similar. But that's called confirmation bias.
Yep.
And we teach confirmation bias, you and I, all the time. When our instructors are out there, you see what you want to see. When you see that coming up, and those coppers did nothing wrong, even though they got censured, even though those coppers in the Torrance County or the Torrance PD coppers had an answer for this wrongful shooting. In their mind, it was cognitively close enough and fit a prototypical match that they had created with their fear or training or information that they'd given. I don't care about all that, but I do care that it occurred. And when that car rolled up, guess what, Brian? In
It
their
was
mind,
him.
it was game on.
So what happened was it was two women who were delivering newspapers in the
Yep.
early morning hours, driving around with their. If anyone's seen, usually someone driving around delivering newspapers, a lot of times they don't even have their headlights on, right?
That's true.
They
Absolutely
they
true.
don't even get out of their vehicle; they just throw
Nope.
it from there, right? And they're kind of in their set route that they do. So just like Greg was talking about, this is that situation where these police officers, what are they doing? All right, police officers were just killed that evening. They're on a manhunt for this guy, Christopher Dorner. Dorner is
Their
said, I
chemistry
am
is
attacking.
different. Yes.
One of the people I want to kill is sitting in the house behind me that I'm
Yep.
protecting right now, and I want to do the right thing. Here it comes, just like Greg said, if it's cognitively close enough, your brain says, boom, that's it. That's no different. Look it up than the other lessons learned we wrote on Amadou
Absolutely.
Diallo, right?
Yeah,
It's the same way
that's
Amadou
a brilliant
Diallo
point,
did it.
Brian. Brilliant. Brilliant.
And you know, once those chain of events start coming, and I think I see something, I see what I want to believe, right? I see what I
Amadou Diallo died because his physiological gesture was close enough to what the cops expected, and they killed him. Now, here's the thing. Due process, coppers, all of you know it. You all know the law. Due process, okay, you do not have the right to escalate that force to the level of lethal force, Title 42, Section 1983 of the U.S. Code. But in addition, go down through Tennessee versus Garner, any of the other case law. You can't just make this quantum leap of logic and start shooting it out before you see the threat. So at that point, you would have had to say, I was in fear because this person accelerated towards me. I was in fear because I saw the glint and it appeared to be a weapon and it was coming up. I heard gunshots and smelled cordite. Brian, did any of that happen?
No, none of it.
So what filled in all that granularity? Where did the rigor come from in those perceptions? It was falsely given to you by your human processing system. So am I saying that your eyes and your brain can tell you a lie? Absolutely. Worst witnesses in the world are eyeball witnesses many times.
Yeah, absolutely. And people forget that. It's like people.
I think they do.
Well, I always tell people, look, I have the worst memory in the world. My memory's no better or worse than anyone else's. I just realize how bad it is, and I have to.
You know that it's porous.
It's not good. You will
Exactly.
fill in details. Major muscle movements, you'll remember a little bit, but when you're talking about details,
even if
just
they're
not
wrong,
remember that. Absolutely.
Even if they're wrong.
So that and that to go to this again of how powerful that is. They weren't the only police officers who did that evening. Just minutes later, I think 15, 20 minutes later, there was another officer involved shooting in Torrance. Same thing. Hey, that vehicle looks like Dorner's. And I think he pitted the vehicle or rammed the vehicle. Shots were fired. He T-boned it. And I don't think there were any injuries or no serious injuries.
So the criminal in this case, who was a dude that was going surfing before he had to go to work. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I don't remember your name, pal. Yeah. But again, same two agencies, Torrance and LA. And we know LA coppers and county and PD. Yeah. We know Torrance PD guys. We train up and down California. And listen, I'm not trying to give anybody a black eye. As much as Dorner's glass was full, your glass was full. You suffered from OBE, overwhelmed by events, overcome by emotions. And that doesn't mean that you couldn't function. That means that you were functioning at such a high level that the information coming in, your brain had concluded and deduced, and you acted. That's a function of training. Training can teach you to slow time down, and training can Harrison. Hey, look up Harrison's slow the ball down or whatever it is. We got to meet him and train with him a couple of times. There's a distance from the pitcher's mound to the batter, and cognitively, you can't make that decision.
Can't make it.
Best batters in the world slow the game down mentally and fire off when things are cognitively close enough. That's what you did. So once you understand it, once you name it, Brian, you can find out how to train against it. And it's not apathy. It's the opposite. It's being so hypervigilant that your brain concluded that something is likely when it wasn't. That's why they escalated force.
It's important to note, too, when those officers thought they saw Dorner's truck, that's who they thought they saw. When the officers who shot Amadou Diallo thought that they were being shot at and he had a gun in his hand, they saw a gun. They're not lying. Their brain said, cognitively close enough, that wallet that he's holding, nope, that's a gun because it's dimly lit, and I'm expecting that.
Dude, they can pass a polygraph.
Absolutely, because their
confirmation
brain,
bias is so strong.
That's that powerful, and you could go
Yep.
back and read up on those officers' reactions at that scene, especially the Diallo shooting, when they realized it wasn't. They were completely out of their minds. They had no understanding of what just occurred because they were so overwhelmed, going, "No, I saw it. It was a gun. I saw a gun," and he's not lying. So
let's protract that out to this information age. That's instant information, 24 hours a day, feeding the average jamoke that's sitting on their couch, man or female or whatever else you identify as. Here's the thing. There was a shooting in Colorado just a day or two ago, and the coppers thought that the right move was to shoot the person in the back because the threat that he posed to the public as an armed person that was wanted for a felony warrant and some other information. Now, that cop's choice at that time and at that place, putting yourself in his shoes, you didn't see it, smell it, feel it, taste it. You didn't know all the other information that he knew. You saw a iPad or iPhone video that lasted 11 seconds and drew your opinion that all law enforcement is shit, and that officer should be fired. And apologize for my language. I'm amped up only because I think you need to go out and educate yourself, general public. GP, I'll call you from now on. I think you should understand that before you cast that net and say all of these things were wrong. I'm not saying that these coppers were wrong. They saw what they thought they did. I'm saying training would have made them better.
Well,
the cop that shot that guy in the back, he may have been fully justified. Once you reach the threshold where you can use lethal force, it doesn't matter if you drop a safe on the guy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, don't be so quick to judge without the facts.
Right, and not just general public. We do that. Military guys,
sure
law enforcement do that. You watch that video, go, oh, look at this idiot. I would never do that. Yeah, turns out science says you would, actually. So that's
it's
thing.
Repeated throughout history
constantly.
That we could go case after case after case.
It's just that why do you, especially like you get in those pursuits, and what happens when it all comes to the end and everyone's out of their vehicle, or there's lights and sirens are still blaring, and those guys don't even notice what's going on, right? You're making it worse right now with that big loud siren that you can't hear anything.
But you don't know it. Your brain tunes that out.
Yeah, you tune it out.
I'm an on-again, off-again foot pursuit, fresh pursuit with the B&E boy. B&E to me is like a rape. Your home is your castle. Anybody that violates that is like prom night with your sister or your daughter. To me, I hate that stuff. So the problem is I got the burglaries out of sync, and the guy that I'm chasing is going through a couple that he did, to a couple that he just did recently, and to a couple of older ones trying to get away from me. And because it's shift change, I'm not getting the kind of support that I need. So I come up to this factory, and I notice that the window's out in the front, just enough for this guy to get in and escape out the back of the factory. I ain't going to stop the ream. So I pull out my Remington expandable baton. I flogged that window out. I was swinging like McGuire. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So I'm flogging and flogging and flogging, and I grab some stuff and I set it up, and I step on the ledge because it's about 4 foot up, and it's a big window. It's got to be a 6 foot by 4 foot panel, and there's a whole bunch of them in the front of this business, and glass is crashing, everything else. All of a sudden, in the office right in front of me, the door opens, and this guy looks at me, and I go, freeze! I mean, I'm amped. Everything's ready to go. And the guy goes, Jesus, pal, what are you doing? And I go, well, who are you? And he goes, well, this is my factory. We're open for business. So when he opens the door behind him, all the pod bay doors are open, and the people are loading stuff and everything else. And he goes, looks like somebody threw a rock through the window. In my mind, because I was on this foot chase, and I'm not going to let this guy go. It was close enough, and I can't remember how much it was. I think I paid $1,800 for this guy's window because it was close enough, buddy. So for those people out there going, well, you made mistakes too. I made mistakes my entire career.
Yeah, we all have. Yeah.
That's why I'm here talking to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't make the same mistakes I did. Confirmation bias will fool you, and you must learn to slow down time and distance just like I did.
Well, so we'll continue on. So now that was that was on the, I think where were we at? We were at this.
I'm going to get sued for that last one.
Okay, so
I remember
that. What's important to remember is also on the 7th at about noon, right around noon that day, is when they found burning remains of Dorner's vehicle on some remote trail right near Big Bear Lake up in the San Bernardino Mountains, right? So if anyone that's just straight east of LA, actually spent part of my honeymoon there. It's an 1.5-hour drive from where I'm at. Love Big Bear. This morning when I was having my cup of coffee, I finished it before I brought it up here, but I'm not joking. We bought one thing when we were there that had Big Bear on it. It was a coffee mug, and I by pure chance, didn't even pay attention until I picked it up and looked at it and went, holy shit, pardon my language, but I'm drinking the Big Bear coffee mug today when we're doing Dorner. So I freaked out this
That's
morning.
the string theory, baby.
Yeah,
That's game theory. That's M theory. So here, quick shout out to that, Brian. Do you believe that Dorner was such in the happy head that he wasn't evidence aware? My take on this is no. My take on this is that the boat was left as a message. I'm not going this way. I'm going that way. I think the car, he was completely evidence aware. And I think at that point that he tried to give himself time by destroying the car so he could jack another car. So I don't think he's a stupid guy.
No,
I think
he is
exactly what he was doing.
He has a decent level of organization, right?
Yes.
So that all that he's
low level
planning
sophistication,
for this. Yeah.
high level of organization.
Because they found weapons and stuff in that car, other ammo, like that. I mean, he
went behind the. You remember when he went behind the. And I don't remember what kind of store it was. It's Newman.
Yeah.
I don't remember what kind of store it was, but remember they had that store video?
It was a store video of him in his truck.
And he tried to burn that stuff in the dumpster. So I think he's evidence aware. And I think what it is that he wants the ruse to work. And here we are in California. And even though Dorner went on this 9-day caper, that's not the only homicide that LA was having during that time. He's not the only serial killer that was operating.
There's still,
I think we need to remember that too.
Yeah, you can't just no, exactly. All of these cities, all of these towns had all their normal course of business going on that they had to deal with, and now they have to deal with this guy.
He knew that.
And that speaks to you brought up being evidence aware. I think that one obviously speaks to your organization level, but that also speaks to how do I deal with this criminal? What are his likely moves next? So now I have someone who's evidence aware. So they have a planning process involved. They have some level of organization. So they likely have a plan if any police officer ever interacts with them, if they're ever seen by a police officer. So,
and that should raise your awareness, but also
exactly
add to what you just said, Brian, because I think you're onto something. What about Dorner's likely sampling of his environment by, hey, where are the cops in my investigation? What are they up to? You think you ever watch CNN? Do you think you ever listen to the news? I think he's listening to it all the time. And coppers and prosecutors and judges and everybody else out there, limit your comms because those comms, news media that become public can only help the bad guy. The bad guy now knows, and then Dorner says, well, I'm gonna drop these weapons and this ammo and light this car on fire because they're no use to me. I now have to go to my plan B or my plan C. And every criminal has a plan B. Copper might not have a plan B.
Right.
When you're pulling up behind that car, that criminal's got a plan B.
Okay, so think about that. That was the 7th where they found his burned out car up in Big Bear. So now they've got this command post set up in the area. They've got several hundred, state, local, federal agencies involved in this, helping to
so you
look
got the
for
entire state. This guy's mobile, and nobody's any.
The FBI was involved. Everything. Well, I mean, so
air units, ground units. Yep.
So, and also this is winter in Big Bear, so there's fresh snow falling. So now that's covering his tracks, but that'll also give you new tracks. So this is going on for a few days, and then to the point where they actually kind of pulled a lot of the people off of the search and off of the area because they thought he was no longer in the area.
He can't be in the area. Can't be.
So
because none of the profile pieces fit. He didn't jack another car. He didn't have another shootout with the coppers. So you're exactly right, Brian. So when it didn't fit, they lowered their level of interest in that AO without thinking, wait a minute, this might be part of his plan.
Which I think speaks to his organization level as well, because he had a plan for this. He had
done it for a couple of days earlier. Why wouldn't he do it now?
So he was set for a few days, and he definitely didn't leave that area because it wasn't until now February 12th. So remember that's 5 days after the shootings in the Los Angeles area. So 5 days, and 5 days after they found his vehicle.
Right.
This speaks to there's a search here. This is obviously not an easy job. Because on the 12th, they actually had Mexican police raid a hotel in Tijuana because they were getting tips. Remember, this is.
And you got to follow all leads, Brian.
You got to follow everything.
You can't just say that's unlikely and not do it. You're right.
They had hundreds of leads that they had to follow up. So in no way is this a bash on anyone involved in this operation.
Not a bit. And Brian, right there is let me ask you this question. Folks, you don't know the definition of terrorism. Homework. Go look it up.
Yeah.
So some people would argue that Dorner wasn't a terrorist. Brian, if I make you scramble for a hoax IED.
Yes.
But yet you have to put out all of your resources.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you not spending time and money and resources and pushing people? So he was costing money
Oh yeah.
and reaching his agenda. Do you understand? So his end state was being satisfied by the motions that he was doing, and the coppers are just trying to spin fast enough to catch up with him.
They had, I think they had people put together up to $1 million reward for any information that led to his capture. I mean, there's just, but there was obviously a lot of agencies, a lot of coordination, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of resources involved.
And they did a great job. Overall, they did an incredible job. There's a few cracks, and we have to put the joint compound in there.
Exactly. So on February 12th, I believe it was middle of the day, San Bernardino County Sheriffs, they get a report of a home invasion and / carjacking, I guess, of a truck at a home in that area of the Big Bear area.
And now things are happening really fast.
Yeah. So now,
even non-coppers, but law enforcement, forest patrol guys, and parks and wildlife guys and stuff that are inundating those areas.
So this is important. I know we've worked with Fish and Game, game warden,
some incredible people,
parks and wildlife folks who are either a lot of times state or federal law enforcement, and their stories trump some of the best dope cops I've met in terms of what they've done with very few people. So they are, people don't realize it's not just, there's actually a great, I forget his name, guy out here wrote a book about it. He was fishing game for the state of California, and he was going on about all the marijuana fields out here that he's going. And so now he's fighting the cartel, and he's like writing a ticket for fishing one day and then getting in a gunfight with the cartel the next.
Exactly.
But anyway, so reason why I bring that up is because it was Fish and Game officers I know were the first to spot his vehicle. They recognized Dorner.
And he doesn't waste any time. We've got shots fired now. He's shooting at the vehicle
right away.
They're forced to defend themselves and shoot back. Exactly. But again, where's his mindset? God damn it, they're on to me. You see what I'm saying?
And so again,
you have to predict that.
Shot them, killed another officer, and wounded another one in that shootout. And then he held up in that home for a while. They tried to attempt to contact him, had all the tactical units, everyone set up, command post, held up in this house in Big Bear, tried to contact him, wouldn't come out, nothing. I think they waited out for a little bit, and then later that evening they launched, or early evening, launched tear gas into the house, which of course happens a lot of times, started a fire in the home.
Happens sometimes.
Well, either the tear gas started the fire or someone started the fire, and then they heard a single shot come from inside the home. They had to wait a while, I think, before they went in there. It wasn't even until the next day.
So I think all that's horse crap. I think here's the thing. If the house is on fire and he's had ammo, which we all know he had ammo, you're going to have some cook-off. So hearing a single shot, that's somebody writing the four corners of the document, and it doesn't sound realistic. It does fit the forensic pathology that says that, he shot him.
The next day, yes.
Well, let's rewind tape a little bit and say that after that shootout, it was found that he had kidnapped a couple of people, and he tied them up and didn't kill them. And that was the car that he was in during the subsequent. That was the. Why is that important? It fits his profile exactly. He only kills when he has to kill. The reason he didn't want to kill those folks is he didn't want to be found out. So he gave himself the gift of time and distance. So he didn't kill them and pulled away in their vehicle. The other thing is they weren't his designated target. It's like Al Qaeda hitting a fuel facility. I would understand. The Houthis blowing up a Saudi oil field. I would understand. But some random killing doesn't make sense because it doesn't feed the beast. It doesn't get me where I want to go. So now the other thing is that sometimes we buy into this thing. For example, news reports say, well, they put a smoke device in there that was just like the Branch Davidian compound and burned it down. Okay, these quantum leaps of logic have to stop. It is true, and Brian, you know this from being in the field. Iraq and Afghanistan, I saw it myself. Sometimes when you put a smoke device, HD white, it'll burn a place down. So if you use a CN gas canister and it's got a fuse, then you got a chance that it's going to burn. Hell, how many ranges do they burn down on Pendleton? You get what I'm trying to say?
From a tracer round, from a bullet.
One tracer round, and everybody's running for Nevada. So the idea is don't buy into stuff that you don't know. It's likely that first of all, I'll guarantee that nobody at that scene said, let's burn this house down on top of the guy. That's just ridiculous, scurrilous thinking. Second thing is, when they did the smoke, they wanted nobody wants to kill anybody, and specifically good coppers. They don't want to see the suspect dead. They want to see the suspect stand trial. They want to hear his message. But Dorner already said his message, so you're showing up for a suicide. You should have known that. At that point, when you did all those things, you might as well have sat around and waited for that lone gunshot because he already told you.
And
he told you and he showed you, and people constantly teach us how to treat them.
And I think that's the point of human behavior profiling. Okay,
yes,
so
I think that's a reason for this training.
After the fact, when we want to, put someone into a profile based on their psychology, I always go back to the Mindhunter stuff, which I love watching those shows and those documentaries. It's great, entertaining, but this is what human behavior profiling is. It's that you're that officer right there on the ground. You're that tactical commander going, based on what we know of him, what is the likely outcome
What's he going to do next?
What's he going to do next?
Rather than being like some alphabet agency that is 100% when they write the profile after the guy's been captured by a local road cop.
I know.
He fit our profile exactly. Of course he did.
We're like, well, your profile didn't lead to his arrest.
Exactly. It was good cop work on the ground that led to the arrest.
And that's what it is. So it's that good investigative work, whether you are law enforcement or not, whatever your situation is. It's just you as a person, as a citizen, can go, well, what's likely going to happen next? And you have to go with artifacts and evidence in support of a reasonable conclusion. What has he done so far? And what does that
therefore mean? What is that pattern recognition?
Yeah,
that's what you just said. And the analysis would be, what's he going to do next? Does it fit an ML or an MD? And even in a dangerous incident where he's killing people, it can still fit an ML and help you predict his next move. I'll give you a point that you're not going to find, and you can search and search and search. And remember, they scrub history. They rewrite history. And I'm not talking about like looking at a UFO. I'm talking about when this first came out, the coppers that were on the scene followed those snow tracks to a house. They knocked on the door and nobody answered.
No one answered.
And they assumed that the other coppers that were there had left those tracks in the snow. And that was actually Dorner's track.
Yep.
And that was the house they came back to. And that's where Dorner shot himself. Why am I saying this? Listen.
Humans repeat behavior.
Human behavior and human performance. You can't function at that high level for 9 days searching for this guy who's killing people like it's free and not be overcome by emotions or overwhelmed by events. So on the ground, you need to be trained to do this. You need to walk up to your boss and go, hey, this might be nothing, but there are footprints around that house over there. And then if somebody comes up and goes, that's probably so-and-so, tell them to step back again and go, boss, I saw footprints. Let's account for them. Because if we don't, Brian, what happens is we start taking everybody's word, and in court you can't even testify to that. It's called hearsay. Objection, Your Honor. Here on those scenes, those cops' instincts were, we're onto something, and somebody or themselves used that denial and said, no, it couldn't be. There's no way that guy's in this house. That's how those cops got shot early on when they tried to stop him, right, where they said that the Ebola was. And that's how these cops overlooked a key piece of evidence in the Kellner case. When you fail to take into account the situation and say, maybe, Brian, you do it all the time when you give the talk about outside of the box thinking, and then you talk about lasers and flashlights. You say sometimes, and I remember you saying this, sometimes that you have to put these glasses on, look in the mirror, and sometimes you have to shine the flashlight or the laser on you. Yeah. And that's what they didn't do at the scene, and that comes with training, Brian.
No, and that's I think a good thing to bring up right here too is okay, well, he's saying this and he did this and he's saying this and he did this, well, how do I tell when, because we get this a lot, and we fail to notice this for denial and all that stuff you brought up, is that what this guy put it out there to the world, who he was going after, what he wanted to do. We've seen other shooters do this, but sometimes people just do that, right? They fire off.
Yeah. So how do you know what's
how
the
do you
line?
know what it is?
I agree.
And you always say, hey, most people just want their say, not necessarily their way. Dorner wanted his way. Cho wanted his way. Kinkle wanted his way. Elliot Rodger wanted his way.
The difference, my brother, difference, my brother, is the demonstration of intent. If it's just talk, and the talk doesn't have a specific, go back to suicide now. You folks that are listening, if you want to talk about suicide prevention, if I not only have the ideation or the fascination and I'm talking about it, and then when I'm talking to you, I say I should do something like this, and I've got the means. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Now we're on to something. Okay, because everybody says, I'll just kill myself. That's different than me going through these steps and actually having a plan, rehearsing the plan, and talk about these are the means that I have ready for it. Dorner did all of that. He said, here's my manifesto. Here's the coin, Anderson Cooper. Here's what I'm warning you people, I'm going to come back and do it.
Right.
It's the same thing that we haven't learned from firing somebody on Friday and not having a restraining order, following them out to their car, or letting them go to their car and come back in. We repeat the same behaviors because of training. We're falling for the education and not conducting the training and the practical application. Brian, only training changes behavior.
No, and I think that's a good point to kind of wrap it up and bring it in for a landing. So, everything we just talked about, we broke down one Dorner case for those of you familiar with it or not familiar with it. This is how we look at it, right? So I put some things in there for everyone to hear that we wouldn't normally talk about, that we don't usually care about, right? Things like what their motive is or what certain reports are, because it's all about their behavior, what they're demonstrating, what they're trying to tell you, all right? And it's also about human performance, all right? Human cognitive performance on Dorner's side, on you, or the law enforcement side, on you as a citizen, right? So this is how you break down that behavior, and this is how you understand behavioral profiling, right? Versus just, well, yes, because you did start off with, well, he's a narcissistic psychopath, hey, that's great information for categorization purposes, for articulation purposes, but I don't need to know that.
No, and that's the beauty.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, Brian, real quick, and I know we're at the end. We're at the logical end point here. Listen, I read sites all the time, and I listen to what people say, and they're talking about, the scar tissue and the damage, and he had an abused childhood, he had all that other stuff. Listen, folks, what we're trying to do is give you the 30,000-foot view. So when we laser focus down on this or any case, we can give you an informed opinion on what we think is going to happen next. If the bomb maker did this, he's going to do these. If the sniper did this, he's going to do these. And if the suspect did that. And that's called predictive analysis. And we're the only people in the world that are willing to come on the radio and the air and share that with you, because we know that we're right many, many more times than we're wrong, because we use science, Brian. The difference is we use science.
It's stick to the science, stick to their behavior and what they're doing, not what you think.
Don't let our emotions pull us one way.
Don't let your emotions don't come to unreasonable conclusions without looking at, well, what if I'm wrong? What if what I think isn't what's actually happening? And sometimes it can be that simple. That's why we call it the most likely and most dangerous course of action.
Exactly.
So I think that's it. So hopefully everyone got a good taste of how we break down some of these cases and what we look at. We can certainly do more. If you want to, I would suggest going to the website of Arcadia Cognerati, right? ARCADIA, Cognerati, COGNERATI, right? .com. Go there. I'll have links up to the YouTube videos.
But Brian, they can even look at the Dorner Detonation. Yeah, they can read it. Because how long, seriously, for our folks listening, Brian, how long, if we were going to do a tabletop on this, how long could we spread Dorner out? We could do days.
We do days.
You see what I'm saying? And they can read that in what, 7 minutes?
Yeah, we could do a 5-day course on human behavior
just on Dorner.
One case. So here's the thing with that. You can go to the website, check out the lessons learned, or you can, if anyone has like a Medium account or they read articles and stuff on there, same thing, Arcadia Cognerati. On there, we post all of our stuff on that site as well, but you can read the lessons learned. So we just took one lessons learned of the 25 or so that are on there, and just to talk about it, so you guys can get some more information. You can see the photos. It gets a little bit more. Also, if you guys want to watch, go to the Left of Greg YouTube channel. You can watch it. It's a little bit more interactive. I'm going to try and throw some of the clips up there and some additions into the video, so it gets a little bit more interactive.
And Brian uses an avatar for me, so you don't have to look at my fat swollen ass during the entire thing.
Thinking about doing that, just replacing your video with someone else, but keep the audio.
Exactly. Everybody keeps saying, "Hey, it's Kathy Bates. I love her glasses."
so
sorry,
check
Kathy.
check those out on there. If you enjoyed it, please, folks, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe on here. Tell your friends about it.
We'll get through this together. That's what this is about. Let's start that conversation.
And once again, just reach out to us. You can find us on there with all the links. If you have, hey man, like I really was always curious about this, because I get texts from my buddies and stuff going, hey, this was great. What about this? I'm like, hey man, just comment down there, because other people knowing human behavior, other people are thinking the same thing.
And have the same complaints.
So just go ahead and put it out there, and then everyone will go, yeah, I was wondering about that too. So we'll cover whatever topics of interest people have. So
so hey, just two quick things, Brian, from me. Let's not forget Dornell Cassette and the loss of a Tuscaloosa, Alabama officer. And And one thing, not to make light of Brian's financial situation, but let's endeavor to chip in and buy him a photo or something for this room he's in.
I know.
What do you say, folks?
It's square. It's just blank wall. So
It's like talking to you, man. It's vanilla. Nothing there.
Nothing there.
No emotional.
The lights are on, but I don't think anyone's.
He's making sense, but we're all a little afraid now.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you, everybody.
Please tune in for more. Stay safe out there and contact us if you have any information. Don't forget, training changes behavior.